Welcome to Bet Doctor, behind the curtain look at how pro punters operate. I'm your host, Scoot. I'm back in Melbourne. DK.
You are, Scooty.
Good to see you, brother.
Mate, you're back. How do you like it down here? In Victoria, mate, isn't this how good's the weather down here? Magnificent. It's got nothing on the Gold Coast. Hey?
I've been here for about 24 hours. It's grey. It hasn't stopped raining. The joint's cactus still.
I crowed it. The other day I was out for a little gallop in the morning, as I do, and it was still as sun as it. I said, we're through winter. We're out the back end. And as soon as I've said that, have a look at the last 3 days.
Completely cast.
Fucking heavy tracks everywhere. I'm sick of heavy tracks, if you haven't noticed. Bog tracks, meetings, buddy. I can't bet early because half the chance they're going to be called off and they're inspecting them in the morning. But anyway, that's the provincials. Big Memsey State card looks enormous. So on the upside there, the horses down here in Victoria, the meeting says it's going to be really good.
I think we might have to ship DK off to New Zealand. I think he'd be unbeatable over there. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But Walt, how are you coping without me? Is Queensland coping without me in the state?
Mate, I've got the lights off down here morning because you're not here. You've abandoned us. You lured me in, told me I was going to dinner with Shaq last night down in Melbourne, and through all the hard work I do all year, tallying up all DK's name drops throughout the year, doing all those things that no one else can do, and then you abandoned me, went down there, you're trying to make out Shaq didn't make it to dinner, well, you're under the table looking for his big 4 foot long or whatever it is.
The reason you couldn't come down is Zagotya. You're still counting. You were best on ground last week. A little $19 or $20 winner there, Zagotya. So
he tipped a $19 winner.
Yeah. W Pike, C Waller, his favourite combination, apart from Reece Jones.
What? W Pike?
Yeah.
How good.
Absolute fill-up. Got me out of a severe hole, and I'm sure that the listeners at home would have followed you in there. So hat tip there, and I'm tipping you're going to be counting that for a very long time. We've got a special guest. We've got Nico Noonan on the show a little bit later, but he's stuck in the Monash car park. There's an absolute big pile on there, so he's going to be a little bit delayed. So the first segment we're going to cover is with Richie Irvine. We've been talking about the state of the great game, and you guys will know Richie from past podcasts and shows, and we sort of call him the Patron Saint of Punting because he's done a mountain of work around the minimum bet laws, which is starting to get a little bit stale. Once upon a time, you had to wait till 9 o'clock in the morning to get your minimum bets on. And
he got them introduced. Basically, he was the one who sort of stuck up and got him introduced, and without that, none of us would be sitting here doing this show or bothering doing anything. So, but that was 2014. So, as we know, as we keep saying, a lot of water's gone under the bridge since then, which we'll go through with Richie, and things need to change, so it'd be great to have a chat to him.
Exactly, and he's proposing a National Bookmakers Betting Obligation, so the NBBO, and this might be a new thing instead of the minimum bet laws to make it a national approach and I guess standardise the betting limits, which seems to there's just bookmakers at the moment that are sort of flaunting the rules, and there's a couple of issues with it, and I think it just needs a freshen up on many fronts. But welcome to the show, Richie.
Hey boys, great to be here.
It's interesting that you've awoken from your slumber because you did a lot of the bullocking work. It would have been, I guess, a tiresome pursuit. You needed to probably focus on your own punting again, and it is a big distraction to have. You've done a great job, as we've said, but it is a bit of a line in the sand moment. I think Tabcorp have just released a 22% loss in some of their figures, and there's a real tipping point at the moment because prize money is going one way, and then the post-COVID boom of betting and turnover is starting to go back the other way. And obviously we've spoken to Tristan a lot. Dean Shannon is starting to pull sponsorship with Ladbrokes, the Broncos. And I guess the next thing, once they stop pulling all the TV ads and the sponsorship, it starts to eat into the punters. And then percentage of the board, all the bonus bets and all the incentives start to go back the other way. But I guess in a nutshell, what's the one primary reason why you think the National Bookmakers Betting Obligation should be brought in and scrap the NBL?
Well, the number one reason is because if you're 20 years old and you watch a sports bet on Ladbrokes ad and you think I might try and start betting on rugby league or AFL or whatever, and you apply yourself and try really hard at it and find a little bit of an edge and have a really small bet, $100, $50, and you get a little bit of a run, then suddenly they're going to turn around and bet you nothing and turn the price off in your face. And that's probably the main reason we need a National Bookmakers Betting Obligation, because it's just completely unconscionable and unfair. You've got to be able, if we're going to have betting, you've got to be able to be offered the chance to win money. So that's the overarching reason that we're doing it. I'm also doing it strategically because I think that if we push that narrative, which is an incredibly strong one, all of us, which is racing punters, can tuck in behind that and get a much better minimum bet limit, which we renamed the National Bookmakers Betting Obligation. The reason we rename it is because the minimum bet limit is confusing. We understand it because we've heard it so many times, but everybody else is not as deeply into the game as we are, probably don't quite understand what it means. The terminology is not great. And it needs overhauling, and it needs to be run by one national body. It's the worst at the moment. You got a bookmaker who's giving you grief, and you got to put in complaints with 7 different jurisdictions or more if you're betting on greyhounds, harness and racing as well. It's all over the shop. This is not to be critical of regulators. They've done a really good job. I got on well with all of them. I've started some good dialogues with them already since I sort of come back into the fray, and they've all been really receptive. Had some good dialogue just over email with Racing New South Wales, and I was happy with the result that I got out of that. Won't really divulge what I said, but more just it gave me some ammo to keep pushing down the road from them, and they were happy for me to put that on the record, so I will put that on the record. And meeting with RVL next week, also got some avenues to meet some of the bigger bookies, like some of the bookies that I've just talked about earlier. And I'm not trying to take a shot at them. I think that they're great for the game. I just want to work with them, work with the governments, and also work with Tabcorp to balance the industry out, because Tabcorp started this conversation, and I think it's a good thing. Like, I cringed a bit when I first saw the ads, because I was like, wow, this is like a little embarrassing for Tabcorp. But then when I sat back and looked at it, I thought this is actually great for punters because there's so much skewed against us. And if Tabcorp want to start the conversation about what's fair and what's not, we've got a lot to say. And so far it's been going good for me. People want to hear what I've got to say. And it's not what I want to say. What I've got to say is like, I'll happily put my hand up to represent all of us. And as you see on my Twitter handle, like, all opinions are welcome. Just because I say something doesn't mean it's the right thing. The more feedback I get, the more I can relate to.
So, Rich, there obviously was it the fair play ads that was the tipping point there? Because I remember a couple of years ago, you sort of threw your hands in the air a bit. And you had enough of dealing with the PRAs. They weren't that, they're just giving you the same lines, and you sort of, okay, I've had enough, and that was it. Someone else can take over this. And we were discussing it amongst ourselves, who's going to take the baton from Rich, and now you're back and strongly in the picture. Was it those fair play ads? Was that the tipping point for you?
Yes, it was. But also there's a couple of things. COVID was around, which was pain in the ass for everybody. I also had 2 really young kids, so when you get hammered by the young kids, and you got people like DMing you on Twitter at 6 a.m. saying I got the wrong deductions off tab, you kind of like, I just need a break from this. So I just took a couple of years off, which is great to do. Refreshed. And also, like, I've been in the game 25 years now, and I was sort of, even at that time, I was like, do I want to keep doing this? A few years ago, is this, I'm halfway through my career, do I want to do this forever? And then sort of realised that, it's what I love and what I want to do. So I sort of redoubled my efforts into the game, and then mostly just getting frustrated that we're not moving, we're not technologically advancing like we should, punters are, and that's because we're hamstrung by rules around minimum bet limits and stuff. And so that was probably one of the main inspirations to get in there and start having a crack for a better deal. But it's all about strategy. Like, I've been doing this long enough now that it's strategy. It's, and you got to pick and choose what you do to get change.
A little bit of conversation that Walt and I have, and you can probably clarify it a little bit clearer for me, Walt, but are you proposing, Rich, that the NBL needs to be higher, so to get on to win amount? Do they need to be higher, or are you just saying that they just need to be uniform across the boards and it just needs clarity and a national approach? Because Walt and I are probably more concerned at the market percentages that are sort of on the boards. And like, for example, in some of top sports markets, they've gone from, say, closing at 111 or 113% market. So, and now they're sort of closing at 117 to 122%. So having the minimum bet laws is one thing. But again, if they're just going to push the prices out and the prices on the boards are going to be less attractive and less appealing, punters are just going to lose 10 times as quick. And I know
That's not true. He's just trying to claw back all the bloody costs and stuff. That's not. I mean,
that's the cause and effect. So if the taxes go up,
that's right.
Tristan has to put more percentage on their board. And I think off the top of my head, I think Betfair is now 30 or 40% more expensive. So their commissions increase between 30 or 40%. And there's like a thin layer of pricing. So the prices look like they're the same percentages, but there's no depth to the market anymore.
That's why you can say, well, yeah, that's what everyone says. Forget about them. Bet with Betfair, but you got to pay. Okay, that's good. You got to bet at SP and pay 7 to 10% for the privilege. Like, it's not that simple. You need the Betfair commissions are going up instead of down. Again, just stifling turnover. But anyway, well, I digress.
Yeah, like exactly what you're saying is the percentage is getting to a position where a lot of people are falling out of racing, like they're disappearing. And kind of what you're touching on. I'm saying, like, okay, people who are like super smart in the market don't want to identify anyone really. Someone who thinks they can bet through any percentage. There's a few out there, they're selective, but people who want to turn over a lot of money, the percentages make it more difficult. And then you've got the guys who are sort of losing between, say, 0 and 10% now, which is still important to the industry. If you up the minimum bet laws and the percentages go up, like Nick was saying, they're going to lose a lot quicker than they're even aware. There's a lot of people that are leaking a lot of money now that don't even really understand why, and they're not winning and they're going to be lost to the market. And I completely understand where Richard's coming from. Like, you've really got to appeal. You've got to weasel your way into a certain point. And we don't have a lot to offer these people, in their opinion, apart from that we pay for the whole industry. But that doesn't seem important to them because they don't identify with anyone other than the recreational punter. And what I see is the recreational punter just absolutely being skinned alive in the industry, basically, long story short, being fueled upon nearly problem gambling. And that sort of goes back to what Rich said at the start. Like, people are enticed to bet, but if you win, you get thrown off the bus, and eventually the only people left on the bus are going to be people that are betting beyond their means, that are being enticed, that are being given all these incentives to bet, and it's just unrealistic to believe, in my eyes, that that's going to fund the industry long term. And again, coming back to how you attack that and how you get a voice and how the best to approach that. Like, I get Rich's frustration. I've never even tried. Like, I've tried on a small level and it's hard to get anyone's ear. But I'm interested to hear what he's the sort of how he goes down with RVL, because I thought that guy was the guy who maybe you could really sort of team up with someone like Tristan, put a good report together, show him, all the people that are lost to the industry, all the turnover that's lost, and how maybe some of that could be recovered. And the plus side even to that for someone like a new administrator in RVL is if he sort of came on board, listened to how you could rejuvenate the industry in a few different ways. And, obviously we want to get other things in that Rich is talking about as well, but say a tax structure that's realistic. We don't want, a handout, but something that the corporates can survive. We can turn over money. Like DK said, drop Betfair's, give them a realistic tax structure and rejuvenate turnover. Like, corporates, they'll get so much money from advertising. If I've been betting on New South Wales alone for 25 years, I'd swap to Victoria tomorrow if they changed, if their market rates came down and Betfair, percentage came down. And I think something like that is probably the way I would have approached it. But, that's a long shot. It's just because you've got a new face in the industry you might be able to listen to. So I'll be very interested to see what, how Rich goes with Racing Victoria especially.
That's Andrew Jones you're talking about.
Yeah, Andrew Jones is the new chief executive for Racing Victoria. So he says that he wants to put customer first and punter first, but I guess it'd be great to get him on the show or get him in the studio here and see what he's, I guess, really made of. There's no one more rusted on the game than DK, Walt and Richie, and I guess we're the only guys that seem to be, I guess, talking about it at this level. But what's your response there, Richie?
Yeah, to all that stuff. So I think the game's completely airborne. Like, sports bet, like making the most money that anyone's ever made in the game.
Is this because of the COVID sugar hit you're including here, though?
Yeah, definitely. They made $750 million clear profit last year. I think they admit themselves it'll probably come down a bit from that, but they're still made a great profit. I mean, they've also, like in their annual report, they've said that they have to set aside a further $125 million for the point of consumption tax rises in New South Wales and Queensland. And that's, and they will be massaging things to make punters pay for that. But I think the point that needs to be made, and I think if you spoke to people who were in the administration side of racing, like back in the 1990s, racing was going great, right? And everyone was betting into 117, 118% tote markets. Yeah, there was a bit of money, of course, but it wasn't anything significant compared to what was in the totes. Racing was doing really well. Then you sort of had the digital revolution from sort of the 2000s onwards, and it was sort of like the Wild West. There was bookies everywhere. The percentages dropped really low because a lot of the bookies didn't have to pay product fees and all that kind of stuff. And it like sort of made it a great marketplace for all of us, and we all did pretty well out of it. It's not like any of us made life-changing money out of it, but we made pretty good money. And the way I see it is that the industry's now caught up with that and have put the percentages back up to around that 117, 118%, like it was in the 1990s when we only had the tab. But now everybody bets fixed price, so the administrators and regulators have to get as much out of punters as they did in the past to continue to grow the game. So my personal opinion is that everything's going airborne in the industry. I don't think there's a lot of criticism out there of especially racing in New South Wales will reprise me. I probably don't really share that view. Like, yeah, Tabcorp came out with a bad result today, and I haven't actually read it. It'd be interesting to see whether a lot of those attributed to poor tote turnover or whether it's attributed to just poor strategic and business decisions by Tabcorp, which they're trying to fix. So I think that the people who are getting squeezed out is all of us, and that's no good, but we are a tiny, tiny minority. Now, do we deserve to get squeezed out? Definitely not. But I think my approach would be, and I'm not saying I'm right, it'd be interesting to talk to the regulator stuff. And like I haven't spoken to PBL. Like I sent him an email and then sent it to him, and then the person below him, and the person below him came straight back to me, which I was really appreciative of. Maybe PBL read my piece. I don't know. But so I would be interested in his opinion on it all about where us, semi-professional punters sit in the scheme of things now that we're betting into really big percentages. What do you guys think about that line of thought?
For argument's sake, right, if a corporate at the moment has to win like 15% on turnover, right, on a day to survive the taxes, which is sort of the numbers I've been throwing, between 10 and 15 overall they have to win on turnover. Insane number. If that's your average, right? And then we put any pressure on them, anything that's good for us, which is only realistic. Like, I agree with you. Automation, as long as, queuing and things is allowed, the bookmakers have got to have some sort of defense against it. But if, you're the first in, you should be allowed to bet across as many bookmakers as there are. No problem with that. But if any sort of more pressure is put on them, where do they go? It's got to...
I think the tipping point's reached. I think the 20%. Queensland, you won't see another state government go to 20%, I don't think. I know that ACT just did it. I don't think you'll see anyone else do it because the tipping point is 15%. Once they go past 15% point of consumption tax, I think that's when people say this is ridiculous, like you're making this untenable. So I think that,
But that's untenable. Sorry to interrupt you. That's untenable with us being squeezed out. So if we want any more leniency or we want any more fairness on our part, it's got to be relaxed further back from where they actually are probably looking just for themselves to be, just so we can fit back in somewhere.
Yeah. So this is the strategy that we need to come up with. So why can't Betfair get a better deal so people like us don't get stretched out, pushed out, so we don't have to pay 10%? What's called product fee? What is it? Your market rate on Betfair? What do you call it?
From my limited knowledge with the Queensland situation, it sounds like the government were $80 million out in what they needed from a revenue perspective, and then they've brought in this new tax, and then they've recut the figures and realised that they were another 50 million short. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Queensland situation changes soon. And maybe you're right, Richie, with that sweet spot. But
because Parnell, he does get it. Like
they understand.
He's got to go hard. So hang on a minute.
And I think the drop off is starting to happen a lot quicker. And we've talked about this on past episodes with the Ladbrokes, the sports bet dropping Queensland racing off their next to jump menus, and then all of a sudden you can see that bookies have got levers. And so the thing that I can't grasp at the moment, or that they've just seemed to overlook, and it's just stark, and I guess because we're aligned with Top Sport and we have an open dialogue with Tristan, we get sort of somewhat of an inside running, it's just more in real time what's happening with his figures. But on a real simple level, Tristan's basically having to decrease turnover and rip the guts out of his business. At a bookmaker his size, he's passed all these new, he's 10 years in front of all these guys that have been on track. He's taken the big leap. He's got into the digital world, and now he's not as big as Ladbrokes, not as big as Sportsbet. He should aspire to be like that, and we need more competition at that top level. But there's just zero incentive for him to grow his business any further, and he needs us in his ecosystem, and he needs a healthy Betfair in his ecosystem, because if Tristan can hold more money and take more bets, his tool to lay off will be Betfair, and will be tote products and different and strong products through there. And all these other small bookmakers, these pop-up the BetMakers bookmakers, they need a strong exchange, because they're just not going to grow and get to that level of taking the holds that they need to without tools like that to lay off, which at the moment, it's devil and deep blue sea. You've got someone like Tristan who's trying to bet aggressive prices, trying to grow his business, and he's going bust. Then you've got all these bookmakers on the BetMaker system that are encouraged to keep their revenue to $1 million or less, and they're just going to take market share off all the other bookmakers and then pay less tax. It just seems like they've all got themselves, the PRAs have just collectively got themselves in a tangle just to appease the tote, and they've just got this one big outlier, Sportsbet, who just seem to be swallowing up the whole market and have got a better digital experience than everyone else, and it's a complete mess. And then you've got Sportsbet playing on the same minimum bet limits as someone like Tristan, and it's just all skew-if and just not fair. It's the opposite of fair at the moment for everyone, and it's just, I just can't see where the incentive is for these people to grow, and there's just no logic around the current set of rules. It just doesn't make sense. It needs a realignment, and we just need better parameters and a better thought-out solution so more people can grow to the next level.
And the biggest thing I feel sorry for Tristan is that he's a Queensland boy. He's born and bred.
Yep.
It's his home state that's sticking it up him the most. Fair enough. He's trying to grow a business, and then all of a sudden he's got a decreased turnover. And just to reiterate, the point, a lot of his customers would be Queensland based.
Yeah, because I hadn't thought about that, because he's in Queensland based. Obviously, the 20% profits
applies to his home state where he's advertising the most and sponsoring the Titans and doing stuff like this, trying to get customers. Yet where the bet is struck, that's where he's got to cop 20% tax. I remember him saying before, he has had good meetings with RVL and stuff when he's tried to do promotions and things. They're happy to give him a tax offset and things like that, where his home state just wants to jam the taxes up just indiscriminately. So, yeah, anyway. We spoke about a tipping point. Walt's been talking about it. You have Scoot and everything, so it seems like it's been reached.
I agree with Richie that something like this, whatever you want to call it, what do you call it? NBBO, something like that. So at the moment, what do we give? 1.5% to the horses that Nebury home, and we give 0.5% to this. We give jockeys things. Why can't 1% be attached to some sort of punters coalition? I don't know what it is that develops technology that. Something like, your automation system down the line, maybe whenever a bookmaker signs up, they must make their API available. It goes onto a dynamic odds that's run by this system, and, therefore, they're always overlooked. Everything's transparent. Punters are getting a fair go. The clients, they know what they're up for. I see they've spent some money on this Ramwick win system. I'm not knocking it, but, I don't know how much went into that, but, this show's a punting form shower, and I use the ratings to win as well. Something like that. I don't care who it is. Making something like that available Australia-wide, those sorts of advantages are things that excite me to make people want to become involved. The betting's another side of it, but how we don't have more love and support from the industry is
1,000%.
Crazy.
For the money that the punters generate and the profits, the fact that it's up to Matt Welsh and these guys to start, actually getting sectional times on racing.com for the last 3 years, but why they don't go and try and grab a punting form or buy a punting, or, the industry lose war chest, but to buy land out here. But what about growing the punting, Why don't go and buy a database, buy an exchange, do something, to invigorate the bloody thing and give everyone the tools they have to turn more money over at a reasonable rate?
There just needs to there needs to be a bigger incentive for the market to get sharper faster. We've seen like the Pinnacle model where they open up on lower limits and then they find that that $1.92 or $1.95 lines, and then the turnover just absolutely thrives. Like if you want to get a bet down on American sport, you can get unlimited amounts of money, and the SP is just so true. And within 3 hours, they know what the line should be when they put up an NBA match or an NFL match or whatever that is. And at the moment, we're so far away from that. Once the prices go up, at the moment, it's just all fake, and then there's nothing really happen. And we saw it on the Coffs Harbour stream. Like the market really doesn't kick in till like the 20-minute mark, and then Tristan's reporting that there's no real genuine action till the last 5 minutes. And the problem is the trading window is so short, and then so punters, as Richie pointed out in some of his articles, they're just so time poor. That's why we need the top flux, the best of the best, and that's why the new generation of punter, they want to do everything on their mobile. So the easiest low-hanging fruit is the in-play sport stuff, and that needs to be overturned. That's going to be a massive injection of funds and turnover. We've got all the responsible gambling checks in place now. The national exclusion is coming, and so once that turns on and the self-exclude on a national level, there's no reason why in-play shouldn't be activated.
And so that's where the strategy comes into it. Okay, so in-play would be huge for Betfair, you would think, right? So why not give that to Betfair, like allow Betfair to have in-play, based on the reason that Betfair is so intrinsic to the wager community. Like the bookies love it, the punters love it, we need it. They obviously chip in a lot of revenue, but if they can go from being, just surviving to making a reasonable profit because in-play comes in, why can't we do that? Especially on the narrative of the Fair Play Coalition. And that's why that's my whole thing is like, give Betfair this, give the online bookies this, give punters this, give Tabcorp that. Like, let's all weigh it up. But at the moment, like Tabcorp started it, they've just got so much advantage now, right? Will they make the most of that advantage? We'll see. But everyone else is cast, and it's like, come on, like let's even things up, and we will. Like, I've never been more confident in a campaign. There's been a few campaigns. The original one, and there was a bit of a campaign around point of consumption tax, which I think we did well whenever that came in 4 or 5 years ago. I think if we weren't as loud, we probably would have got higher point of consumption taxes. And then this is another campaign. But this is the best one. This is the one.
That's bloody encouraging to hear, Rich.
Yeah.
We're talking about, we're all a bit negative here about the dire position of things at the moment, but to hear your confidence levels on we might get some change to be ahead and people are listening to you, that is very, very encouraging.
Well, I don't think we're being negative. I think it feels like we're slow motion into the iceberg, and when you've got people that are there couldn't be more chips in guys like Tristan. It's a family business, and then you got someone who's got the tech savvy and the investment across the board on a bigger scale, which is a guy like Dean Shannon. And if they're ringing the alarm bells... Yeah,
more alarm bells. Sorry, I was in the wrong word, alarm bells. I shouldn't have said...
We're just not trying to crash, I guess, into the iceberg that everyone can see further down the track. And I tell you what, if we had waited for Tabcorp to pick up their feet, like that bloke, Reichensfield, or whatever his name is, they released something the other day and they want to be digital savvy, they want to do this and that, and it's all about the customer. Like, mate, the horse is bolted. Like, that's 10 years ago stuff and 10 years ago conversations. Like, they're absolutely asleep at the wheel. And like, without getting too critical, like as soon as you see guys like Adam Hamilton and Quinny leave the tab, you're thinking, oh, gee, what's going on here? Those blokes are so rusted on, alarm bells ringing, and they've seen the writing on the wall there as well. But it's just, if you rest on your laurels, nothing will go well, and there'll be no change and no good will come of it. Like the tote's a great example, and I think it's a good thing that the tote, and you'll probably disagree with me here, Richie, but the tote at the moment for a punter like me, there's little value. Whereas Best Tote and SP, that's a good product for me. But I think the fixed odds, I guess, revolution is a great spot for punters across the boards, because all of a sudden the offshore leakage to places like CityBet and those tote-based products, if that dies, that's fine. And all we need to do with our fixed odds market, you've got something that's so transparent from an AusTrack perspective, which is Betfair. All the bookies have got really tight KYC, know your customer areas. All we need to do is to try and get the fixed odds markets up at a reasonable level of pricing, and then try and get to that low area of whether it's 115, 118%, and just let everyone rip by that stage, and have smaller limits at the start. Let the smarts, let all of us bash the market to where it should be, and then just open it up so you can turn over as much as you like within the last day or as soon as race day comes. You should be able to get on anywhere for a massive amount of bets, and all these bookmakers should be able to lay off either on the exchange or with each other, because the market's so true and so deep by that stage. Like, it's like reversing bookmaking back 10 years ago where you could lay off, but this UK model at the moment, which Sportsbet have used to their advantage to grow so quickly, it's ruined it for anyone else.
Yeah, the days of betting back, bookies betting back are long gone, Scoot. Long gone.
But if you have the depth and the strength of an exchange and the bookies have got confidence to bet back, the whole market will rise and flourish. It's like the Pinnacle Sports model where you get to the number quicker. And that's what TopSport were trying to do. And now they can't do it. And the percentage is going to be back onto their boards, and it's going the wrong way.
They might be our sponsor, and we might talk about them favourably most of the time, but they do seem to align with a system that allows people like us into it far more than anyone else. Everyone else is really fallen along the poker machine line now. They don't want to hold any bet that risks them. They don't have to hold any bet that shows any risk to them. They only don't want any client that risks them. They just want to put it in the draw and forget. And Tristan does seem the only one who wants to push forward. And that's why I see that he's like someone that we probably should talk to a lot about, okay, what do you need to push forward? This is what we need to push, turnover forward. Is it possible for us to both exist? And what would you need to that happen? And then present it forward. And it just makes sense that, same as a punter, the more you turn over, if you have to sacrifice, percentage on turnover, the more you're turning over, the safer you are. And it's the same with the industry. If we can generate more turnover, maybe drop the taxes a little bit to allow other people back in, as you said, it flourishes. It provides longevity for everybody in the industry, not just punters.
I think we should get out of this talk, which has been a really good talk, and I think a lot of people really enjoy watching it, is we should try, and one thing we need to realise is that maybe we don't fit in the industry anymore, right? And I think about that, and it's like, okay, well, if I want to stay in the industry, how can I keep making money? Maybe it is by doing things like you do with Little Birdie and that, and getting revenue not directly from betting. You can entertain people like you do with Little Birdie, but we need to ask the people who make the decisions about whether or not we fit in the industry. And I don't really have an issue if we don't fit in the industry anymore, because the industry costs a lot to put on, and all the participants need to be rewarded before we make money on the punt. That's basically the way I see it. But what we can do is try and get Andrew Jones on from RBL, and even try and get PBL on, and sit there and say, where do we fit in the industry, and tell them about how we'd like to bet. And I would welcome them saying to us, actually, you guys don't fit in the industry anymore, because the way that you guys want to bet into 105% markets, it's not sustainable for the industry. And if that's the case, then at least we know it, and we can either try and make our form work even harder at our form, so we can win betting into 115% or whatever it's going to be, or we can not bet in the industry. But I think we need to be realistic in the sense that you probably don't want to hear this, but we make up, like us semi-sophisticated punters make up probably 1% of punters. Our turnover doesn't really matter. So
we might be 1% of punters, but what are we like in turnover? And then you're talking about, okay, I'm like exactly what you're saying, 105 or something, whatever it is. But if you bring back in your Dr. Nicks, your Gelcos and things of previous days, I know they were on huge commission deals and things. If you have a more attractive environment, they come back. We do have the best product in the world.
But Dr. Nick and Gelco are so much smarter than all of us. Like, that's the point. Like, they're
gone already.
What's that?
They've left already, like you say.
Yeah, they've only left because it's not worth it a while. Like Dr. Nick left because he's like, this is all hypothetical, but I reckon he was like, I make $4 million a year on fixed odds racing in Australia, and I couldn't give a shit about $4 million, and it's not worth all the dramas. I don't want to do it anymore. Like Jocko, I have no idea if Jocko still bets fixed odds, but they're just such massive. They bet $4 or $5 million revenue to them is nothing compared to the $200 million they make on racing around the world. That's where it's at.
But if you've got the best racing product, platforms, everything to put the best show on earth, potentially, and they're leaving the space, isn't that a bad sign that maybe things are out of balance?
No, because they're so good and they make so much money in the rest of the world, they can't be bothered with.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, why can't they be bothered? There must be an imbalance somewhere.
So that's what we need. And I reckon, how do you get Dr. Nick and Jocko back? And I'm presuming Dr. Nick doesn't bet on fixed odds anymore. I don't have any intel on it. I think, he rumours like you guys do. But if you want to get Dr. Nick back, offer him automation so that he can get with 50 or 60 bookers, however many are. And
that'll get him back.
Yeah, and have minimum bet limits from the time people put the markets up, and then reinvigorate the totes. Get all the money going to the tote pools. Give people like us, there's all kinds of ideas you can do. Like we say that we get pegged a sophisticated punter, and if we bet on the tote, we get 6 or 7% rebate because we are seen to be good for the game. So that, and to qualify for that, you've got to turn over so much, or I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head now, but there's so many things that we can do if they want to keep us in the game, And I keep saying this is not. I'm not whinging about us being forced out of the game because you can always adjust, we can always work harder to get your form even better. But these are some of the things, and I reckon Andrew Jones is a great chance to come on this, and we could put the questions to him beforehand, so it's not an ambush, So and just show him why wouldn't he do it? I think it'd be really good for him. And then we can even put it to PBO, and if we keep chipping away at him and once again put the questions to him and don't ambush him, he might come on and tell us where we sit and what he thinks about the fair play coalition and all that kind of stuff. Because there's not much. What's the point of us all just sitting here whinging? Like, let's try and get something done.
I think at the moment, and Walt I think Walt mentioned it before, it's the people that are losing at 5%, 10%, rusted on customers. Everyone's trying to find the next customer, new customers. All these punters that have been in the game for so long, they get frustrated. They stop betting. The flow-on effect and knock-on effect, their kids or whoever and their friends, they all stop betting. And then the problem gambler.
But like turnovers, like sports bet just keep turning over more and more money. Like everyone's betting multis. Like,
but they tap out faster. So if you want to generate fees, you put the percentages down and you get the churn rate, so the customers stay in the game longer. So if you've got 130%, the punter that bets into 130% market, they can make less mistakes than the person that bets into 115 and 113% market. Like at Betfair, it was all about the churn rate. How do we get a customer that loses 20% down to 10%? How does a customer that loses 10%, how do we get them to 5%? How do we get the winners that win 10% to do more? And it's just like continually turning the money over and over and over. And that drives revenue and taxes and fees for these industry bodies. And it's just.
But is that anything? Where's the evidence that turnover's dropping? That's what I'm challenging on. Like I don't see it.
No, like I see it go up, but then the squeeze is on all these other people that are promoting the game. Okay, so if I pack up and Little Birdie doesn't exist, with Walt's got heaps of punters in his chat room, all that goes.
I feel like
all these people, like the knock-on effect of turnover is huge. Like in what we punch out. If Top Sport close the doors and Tristan goes, "Oh, this is too hard for me," where do all those punters go? Like the knock-on effect is massive. Like there's nothing to say that Tristan won't turn around in a year's time and say, "We've had a gutful of this. We're going to sell the business," and then there's an avenue for all of us that we use to get on, and we can't do that anymore. So like it's a real big issue. Like Matt Tripp could come and buy Top Sport and change his business model completely, and we all can't get on. So, like, you say that and a lot of people say that the tab's gone. How many times do you take quaddies and exotics now? Like those pools are gone. So all that turnover's gone. We can't. I don't use the tote. Betfair, if the liquidity's not there, I won't use that. If Top Sport then go and sell, there's another option. And then all these new betmaker platforms, all these on-course bookies, well, it's 70 robot bookies, and they've got this managed trading service. So there's one ship in there that can profile and control all the accounts. And like from an ethical point of view, I just don't know how that can be right. And so I'm a manual punter. DK's a manual punter. These guys have got automated pricing systems. They've got a control system so they can put it on autopilot, and one trading team can push the button on all these bets. Poor old DK's trying to whack away, have a million tabs open just to get his bet down. So he needs to have a fair fight. I'd like
to hear Richie's thoughts. Just digressing to that BetMakers and all the new bookies joining the BetMakers software with the one managed trading area there, sharing knowledge and things like that. Richie, you got any issues with all of that?
Yeah, a huge amount of issues, especially when they're using it to our disadvantage. I don't know how far to go. Like, is it to the point where DK, you back a horse, and then literally every other BetMakers bookie is alerted that Dan Kelly just backed this horse, or is it? Are they just alerted by the fact that the horse goes from $5 to $4.60?
Most of them don't even manage their risk. They don't even see the bet. They don't see anything. They could access your bets because it's your client, but they won't know who's triggered it if it's another client. But they don't even see it. They just get the benefit of it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's great. Like, automation is great. Like, let the bookies be as powerful as they want to be, but don't turn around and tell us that we have to sit there literally typing in $200 into the best of then hitting send. Like, give us half a chance. And the biggest point is, where there's no doubt that we help the industry make a lot of money, is knocking the markets into shape. Like, I know for a fact Sportsbet want us betting with them early, because when Dan takes $5 a horse and brings it into $4.20, when the owner comes along and wants to have 10,000 on it, Sportsbet are much happier to lay it to the owner at $4.20 than $5, because Dan's knocked it, said that it's not actually a $5 chance, it's probably closer to $4. So, and that's, we have helped the industry make, especially Sportsbet, make money because of the hard work we put in, which is fine. That's part of a financial market. But then don't tell us that, like, they can have the fastest, best technology and we're not allowed any of it. Like, it's just wrong. And I kind of think the regulators are starting to see our point of view. So let's hope it happens.
From my point of view, I think I like the way you're headed with, I guess, the Andrew Jones discussion. I think it's maybe time to, we can kick it off. I'm happy to fly everyone to the same capital city with us guys in the room. We can film it, we can stream it, we can get all the questions lined up. And I'd love to get Dean Shannon, Tristan there, someone progressive or someone that wants to listen, like an Andrew Jones. God, if we could get PVL in there, it'd be handy, or just some regulators from Racing Queensland. I don't think it's too fanciful, but I think the time is now to have that conversation and figure out where we fit in the landscape and take some more feedback from, I guess, some other areas and other codes, because I know there's some harness racing punters that I spoke to that are knocking the door down that would be keen to jump on a punters coalition, see what their pain points are. I know the dog boys would be behind us, and obviously sports punters just seem to be left out in the cold. Like, they need minimum bet laws in play as another bit of low-hanging fruit. But what do you think, Rich? Do you reckon we can make it happen and get everyone in a room? I'm sure Dean Shannon and Tristan would jump at the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get everybody in a room. Probably logistically, they might be a little hard, but that doesn't mean we can't still do it and patch it all together. Also, Tabcorp, like, I'll reach out to Adam, the CEO, and ask him if he can come on here and talk to us. And once again, it won't be an ambush. The questions can be prepared beforehand, so he's got a chance to answer them properly. And yeah, because people don't know this, but you came to me a few weeks back and said, let's do something, let's put a coalition together. And I was like, yeah, I've been thinking the same thing. But I think what we're doing right now in this interview is the coalition. We don't need to formalise or anything. This is the most powerful way to do it. It's social media. I reckon this talk will get a lot of views, and we all agree that we want to find out more and we want to try and affect change. So let's rip in. Let's do it.
And we don't want a free lunch either. As you said, you're not. You think we had it too good early in the which we did. You had a Bet365 account back in the day. You couldn't lose, and that was insane. It was never going to remain. We don't want a free lunch. We're happy to work hard. We just want, fairness, which is what you're saying. We want it to be back to some sort of level playing field where we know where we stand. We know we can exist, because I'm like you. Every second day you're questioning whether you are going to be in this industry long term. And like you, I'm passionate about the industry and want to remain in it. And I don't want any sort of head start. So, we're all happy to try and work out what is a level playing field and coexist with everyone.
And another point that I wanted to throw in quickly is everyone's obsessed with making content. All the bookies are trying to make content. Ladbrokes are trying to make content, all that kind of stuff. There's so much great content in betting fluctuations. And it takes me back to the point about Dr. Nick. Get Dr. Nick back in the game. And then when he takes the market out, because he's got automation with everybody, you can start saying that, like, Dr. Nick just took the market out on this horse. Like, and that's in the piece that I wrote, and invite the hedge funds and all that kind of stuff. Get them here trying to bet on it. And then it creates theatre and it creates content because something's happening in the market. This hedge fund just took the ring out on Flemington race 3. Like, there was so much theatre in the on-course rings. Let's try and bring that back. But it can't happen unless you bring in some proper structural changes.
And all that creates turnover and
creates
interest.
Everyone's hailing it. I love it when, what's a huge Citadel, the biggest one of the biggest. Citadel just took the ring out on this, and Dr. Nick just smashed this. King's just hammered this. I speak to Kings all the time. He's fully in on, like, he would be happy for his bets to be broadcast all the time.
As long as he can get set at a in a fair way, absolutely.
But he's class. Like, he can't get, like, he's like, I know him very, very well. He works so fucking hard. He's always, all he does is sit. I was speaking the other day. He's like, I don't watch TV. All I do is sit at my desk doing, like, on my computer. But he's disillusioned. He's like, it's like, I can't get on anymore. Everyone just takes my information and uses it against me.
I have people message me on Twitter, Kingsley's on this, Kingsley's on that. And that's what you say. You try and track back how they even know, and it's through a corporate or it's through whatever.
Yeah.
Nick and I sit here and talk about a silly horse on Saturday, 3 days out, and you're talking about it for 10 seconds. It's firmed from $21 into $12 and probably, $100 worth of turnovers. So it's just, it's not helping anyone. You can't actually, as you say, at the moment, you can't be transparent because the market won't allow for it.
Amazing times.
It's interesting times, and it
just doesn't sit still, Scoot.
No, exactly, and I think it's everyone's worried. Maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, saying where's the there's only going to be a couple of bookies left, and then all of a sudden we've got all these on-course bookmakers that are migrating online, and I just think it's in a mess. And I think to just sort of sum up, I think the National Bookmakers Betting Obligation is a really smart play. I'm not sure that the NBL's raising that is going to do much, but I think if we can try and get that on a uniform approach across the board, and I think Richard's idea about a federal body that controls that is a good one. I think we need to tie it back somehow, or the market percentage issue is a big one. Richie touched on it before. The smarts need to bash the market into a decent enough level so that there's a bit of depth to the market, and so everyone can bet and everyone's happy and safe. And again, once you get the percentages down, once the markets are deeper across the boards, then bookies can start to lay off, bet back with themselves, and it just needs a real big cleanup. So I think what we'll try and do is we'll try and get Andrew Jones and a couple other people, Tristan, Dean Shannon, over, I guess, the spring carnival, and try and get them in a room, or we'll get them staggered and with some interviews, and we'll push as hard as we can and support Richie in his quest for some traction with the federal feds, and hopefully the PRAs like Racing Victoria, who are one of the more progressive. We can get him in touch with them, and we can start making some genuine changes.
And the last point I want to make is, like, there is a pathway to a National Bookmakers Betting Obligation via the federal government. They've done all the research, and that's why I wrote the open letter to the Social Services Minister. She just has to make a decision. They've done the research. Do you know how long it would take to write a 58-page report on account closures and restrictions? It takes months and months and months. It would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Make a decision, So it's there. It's not like, because the worst thing is, we want this change, and they've got to go to government, and it takes forever to get. Like, we've done all that. We've been the government. They've done what governments should do. They just need to make a decision.
I think Andrew Jones is the man. He said he wants to put punters first and customers first, and I guess we're going to try and call him out and do it. But big thanks, Richie. We could talk about this as we have probably for an hour already now, or close to it. What are we
scheduled to talk for, like 10 minutes or something?
Yeah, no idea. Probably 15 or 20 minutes, but I think we're about 45 minutes on the clock.
So very important.
Big thanks.
Line in the sand moment.
Good luck, and anyone that wants to follow Richie's stuff it's at So The Great Game on Twitter, or just follow at Little Birdie TV. We'll be retweeting and commenting a lot, or at Bet Doctor TV. But big thanks from all of us here, Richie, and have a good weekend.
On you, boys.
Bye. All right, Richie. See you, mate.
All right, we might take a quick break, see if Nico's here and beaten the Monash car park, and we'll get back to, I guess, the normal routine of the show and try and find you guys a winner for this weekend on the punt.